Okay, guys, we're live. So welcome back to Environmental Social Justice. So we have Joy and Joel with us again today. And one of the things we're going to talk about today, good morning. And one of the things I want to talk about today was is oil dead? And the reason I bring it up is Joy shared a very interesting article on LinkedIn this week called from the New York Times. And is big oil in trouble? And its plan is to flood Africa with plastic. So I have an issue with this, primarily because we screwed up Asia by dumping all of our plastic. And now I guess the plan is to send everything to Africa, which has very strict laws, specifically in Kenya. And apparently it's the, the International Trade for American Chemistry Council is lobbying to dump plastic in Kenya. And it might actually happen. I mean, Joy, did you have any insight on the government side of things of what's going on with this? Why are we always the bad guys? Why are we doing this?
We tend to try to find countries and offer unbalanced trade agreements. So we're going to give them our trash for some sort of trade agreement, whether it's for food, for resources. Once you take all of the resources out of a country like Kenya, then you're left with offering them the last bit of goods that you have. In our case, it's plastic. China is not going to be taking too much of our plastic.
They just flat out said, no, we're done.
Yeah. So you're trying to find somewhere else, and you make the deal more savory by offering them basic necessities in order for them to keep on going along that path. So it's a thing. It's not new. There's nothing new under the sun, and you just figure out where to allocate byproducts of resources to those who are most vulnerable. So it's quite interesting.
This is like the most PC way to spin it. It is hysterical. It's
very polite. It's bad. It's totally bad. It's just this is just the way it goes.
Oh no, it's horrific. It's totally just taking advantage of people who need help.
Right. I mean, you can't eat plastic at the end of the day. You barely recycle it. So,
and that's the thing is, why are we even still making it? So, I'm a chemist by degree. I'm grateful to have that degree to study it. So when I see that the American Chemistry Council and it's supported by Exxon Mobil, Chevron, Shell, and Dow. I know that Shell's doing a lot in renewable energy. They're really being progressive on that. The other industries I'm not too up on. Why are we even still looking at plastic? We have so many alternatives. We have so many people involved that are doing, biodegradable materials out of avocado pits, out of nopal leaves, which is cactus. Why are we even bought? I mean, it's cheap and easy, I guess, right? We just like cheap and easy.
The reality is you always just follow the dollar. I mean, it just is what it is. Yeah, that's just all there is to it. You follow the buck. I mean, it's too expensive to change over to the new technologies, blah, blah, blah. And it's ingrained in who we are. We are a disposable society. I mean, we don't.
That's true.
Yeah.
And the reality are going along with what Joel's saying about the finances of it. Let's just take plastic bottles, for instance. If the world was completely outraged by plastic bottles, guess what? There wouldn't be water bottles in your grocery store.
Right.
I remember when water bottles came out. I remember when that came out, and I remember thinking, who the hell's going to pay for water? But they did an excellent marketing by saying it's cleaner when it's not. So actually, I did a tour at the Department of Water and Power in Laverne, where I learned that actually the water that LA processes and treats is cleaner than what you get in your bottled water. Has less total dissolved solids as well, which that was interesting. So it's not as clean.
Desal is really clean. It's just that it costs so much to get water.
And desal has that extra salt, like you have concentrated salt now. That's like, what are you going to do with it? You're going to dump it in the ocean, and then you cause a whole eco-bio issue. The big issue I have with that article, because I read through the whole thing, and I know you're probably more in touch with it than I am, but they're planning on using Kenya as a hub to distribute plastic throughout the entire continent of Africa. What the hell is up with that? I mean, yeah, I'm kind of backtracking to the initial part of our conversation, but it's just stupid. I mean,
yeah, well, Africa's had a history of having things like this done to them before. 30, 40 years ago, they didn't even know what sugar was. They've put sugar on the continent of Africa, and people are now baking stuff, baked goods, and there is an alarming rate of diabetes on the continent right now and high blood pressure. So even such imports as sugar have created a catastrophe for people who are not even used to, their bodies are not used to that type of element. So, sugar was like a rarity. You'd make.
I didn't realize that. They didn't have other forms of sweeteners, or are we talking?
Well, no, it wasn't distributed in mass. So, I guess I'm sure if you went to a hotel in Africa, they had sugar because that's a Western, substance that people want, just like salt or, any other condiment. But when sugar flooded Africa, diabetes just went up. Their bodies couldn't process it. So let's put that in the same context of this plastic, and we'll see what happens with the leakage that comes out of the plastic, how how they adapt to that, how they adapt to having now more plastic containers, different foods that can now be processed and not eaten just right away. It's going to create a lasting effect, not only on the environment, but the people who are living in the environment, and probably cause an increase in physical disease. Not to mention even the animals. How many birds are going to be eating plastic, or a fish found in the lake? All of the things that we've seen happen over the last 60, 70 years with plastics, just compound that by people who've never even seen anything like that. So there's some real things to think about here.
Sharing is caring, Rachel.
Exactly.
Sharing is apparently not caring.
Right. And that brings new light to the term of dumping, emotional dumping. How you have those friends and you're like, hey, this person dumps too much. I'm really not interested. Yeah, we're going to dump all of this plastic and all of the problems that plastic
When is this going into effect?
When
does this go into effect? When is this starting, or has it already?
It's still being lobbied. So they're in negotiations. I guess Kenya, the prime minister, and maybe I'm using the wrong terminology, is very interested. But obviously the environmental organizations are trying to boycott it and stop it because of the disastrous effects that could happen.
Good.
That being said, it's all going to be lobbying politics. How much money is being sent over to make this happen?
In the form of aid, quote, aid that we're giving.
Yeah.
So, I think, again, the more we talk to people, the more we get them involved. Just communication. I can't stress that enough. The more we talk about these things, because once I read that article that Joy shared, then I started kind of poking around the internet and went down the rabbit hole and realized that Exxon Mobil's getting booted from the Dow Jones. I actually have been saying this for a couple of years, because the oil industry, those pricings are just going down and down and down. What happens is it drags the stock market down. But it's interesting. Actually, so with Exxon being removed, it's been there since 1928. And it's kind of a sign of the times that petroleum is finally taking a downturn, I think. And just kind of, crude oil isn't even worth pulling out anymore. So in order to get crude, did you guys know what you have to do? It's sludgy, it's thick, it's heavy, it's very hard to get out of the ground. This is not like, in Texas where they had the gushing oil. You have to inject a massive amount of steam or hot water just to get that stuff out. And it's too expensive and not worth it. So we're definitely seeing the downturn. And I know that British Petroleum's no longer exploring in new countries. They're just stopping. That being said, with with our renewable energy initiatives, we don't have the raw materials to even build the batteries.
Yeah, this is true. But as far as locally or on a national economy, gas is plummeting. It's plummeting quickly. I was talking to a friend of mine who's one of the owners of LA Car Guys, big plug to LA Car Guys on Saturday. And all of his sales in Lexus and Toyota are definitely in the hybrid space, and the Toyota plug-ins. So I think this COVID and the whole thing with the economy is really driving people to figure out different ways to shift their dollars. Instead of buying $75 of gas a week, what can I do to drastically reduce that? It's a great time for people to be thinking socially consciously about issues like this. And I think it's transferring over pretty quickly. I mean, don't get me wrong. I do drive a Tesla. I also have a hybrid, a Toyota Prius. But what I'm finding now that I'm charging more on the Tesla, electric bill isn't as cheap as they promised. It used to be that it was like free, but a full fill up of about 250 miles is still costing about $8 a fill up. And you just set your car up to charge at certain hours where the rate is cheaper, and you make it work. And it's still definitely a lot cheaper than gas. But I think that people are really trying to make the shift, not so much to be environmentally conscious right now, but more so to figure out how they're going to shift their finances in the midst of COVID. And the effects of COVID are going to be lasting for years to come. So you might as well get an automobile that's conscious, learn and practice with it right now while the timing is right, and make it happen. So yeah, I think there's a shift from oil.
Yeah, as long as you can afford the Tesla or the hybrids, you can afford the plugins. I'm so glad you brought up Tesla, though. I tend to go down rabbit holes of information, especially with the economy and things going on right now. So Tesla claims that at the end of this month, they're going to come out with their 1,000,000-mile battery, meaning they have a battery that with a charge, apparently one charge, you can go 1,000,000 miles. And what I love about it, I mean, I'd love to see that actually happen because I'm a cynic. But what was cool about it is all of our batteries are lithium ion. So everyone knows lithium ion batteries, they've been around forever. They're okay. Your cell phone has it, your computer has, everything has the lithium ion. What they don't really, the general public doesn't really know, is there's cobalt in that. Cobalt's a big issue because it's mined in the Congo, usually by child labor, slave labor, and people die. This is not being environmentally or socially justifiable, or however you want to go. This is bad. This is not what we want to be doing. So Tesla changed that. Their battery is lithium iron. So apparently this 1,000,000-mile charger is a lithium iron battery, which I know absolutely nothing about. But I find it very cool that they are finally found a way to not use cobalt, because that's been an issue.
Right.
Long-term issue. Again, with screwing over other countries, we don't want to be that person anymore. So hopefully, we'll see what happens with that. Joel, you're looking irritated.
No, I just I mean, there was an article this morning talking about electric cars are not going to be affordable for the manufacturers for a minimum of 10 years. Do I put that oil's on its way up? Nope. Don't. Sorry. Electric cars you can't afford it. They're too, I mean, yes, I understand that it's $8 to charge it, but when you're looking at $60,000 to $120,000 to purchase the car, because you can't lease it.
You have to buy the plug-in or have it installed or find somewhere to go plug it.
I'm sure that I would love to get one, but I'm not spending that kind of money on a car. That's just a personal thing. I've had a hybrid before. It was great mileage. Loved it to death, but then the batteries, the warranty, replacing them, blah blah blah, was too expensive. But yeah, for an electric car, they're just unaffordable. They're unattainable.
What kind of hybrid did you have?
I had the first Civic hybrid that hit the States. I had the first of that one, and it was fantastic. I loved that car. But that's the problem with electric cars. They're unattainable by the masses. You just can't afford it. And the ones that are affordable only go like 100 miles, if that.
Yeah,
So
I had a friend who was stranded. Actually, his partner forgot to charge up overnight, and he drove to his meeting and got halfway and crapped out.
I think Chevy had a great option with the Volt, but it never took off because it just wasn't the right time for it. To do the gas electric hybrid. I test drove one of those things and it was freaking awesome. I loved that thing. But I also live in a condo. I didn't have a place to charge it. So, you've got all the other.
That's a big problem.
It's a big one. I mean, I know that I think it's what they can't deny you the right to install it now in a condo building or an apartment building. If there's somebody who lives there is wanting to pay for it, they can't say no. But the expense to do it can be so, by the time you're spending $60,000 upwards for a car, then you got to spend, $5, $10, $15,000 to get the electric run plus the charger. Most people, especially now where people are losing their jobs left and right, and we're in a tanking economy, I don't see how people are I don't see this happening, unfortunately, for a very long time. Not to be Debbie Downer, but it's just
No, you're right. I mean, I've wanted to get an electric car for a while, and when I looked at how much it costs to install the plug, and we're in a multi-residential area, but no, that just stopped right there, unfortunately. Joy,
I think that the states are definitely, at least blue states, are definitely trying to find money to help this become a more affordable thing. And even as Tesla's Elon Musk, he's trying to find a way. First, he's got to get the battery researched, but he's trying to find ways to make his car, more affordable, especially the smaller models. So it's going to take time, but people are working on the affordability.
I know, agreed. And luckily we have a bunch more. I think there's 20 or 30 models that are about to be hitting the market in the next few years. That number is probably really high, but even Volkswagen's doing them. They're all coming on board with this. But Volkswagen's going to have their electric chargers or their electric cars. They don't have the charging infrastructure because I guess they're not all universal. Which is but
what about Joy? You probably know more about that because you're in Young Professionals for Energy. Why is there not one plug? Why are there different plugs?
It's so crazy. In the very beginning, 10 years ago, people were clamoring to get a charging device, and all of the companies, they were sending their reps out to different cities to get them to install them in their garages with a credit card, what have you. And it just created chaos. And now these charging stations are too expensive to replace. And car models have even changed, and the way the plug-in goes in.
Like your phone.
Yeah, you just. I think really what's going to have to happen is there's going to have to be universal charging ports, kind of like Tesla offers at different places. But it's going to have to start taking, volts, any other kind of car that comes along, because right now there is no consistency. And it's hard to find a charger.
And it's all proprietary. I mean, it's look at just your phone. Samsung has a different plug-in than Apple does. And so it's unless they create universal thing. But before I forget, the best thing for the electric cars is to watch that movie, Whatever Happened to the Electric Car. I don't know if you saw that documentary.
Yeah.
That was incredible. That's why that right there will sum up why the oil industry will never go away. Watch that documentary. They killed that sucker with a heartbeat. With a quickness.
When did that happen? What was it, recently, 20 years ago?
That was, the documentary probably came about 7 or 8 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
But it was basically because Toyota had the first crossover electric car, and people wanted it, and they clamored for it, and they were what they had sold out, but then they took them all back because you just have to watch the movie. It's a great movie, and you get angry.
Yeah, no, I got angry about the plastic in Africa, so good, I can get angry again about this. I'm just tired of us being the bad guys. We just seem to consume a lot and then out of sight, out of mind. Take our garbage to some other country, dump it off. We don't care anymore. I don't want to know about it. I don't want to see it. Yeah. Same with our food industry.
Consumerism in those countries as well, where simple is usually better as far as health-wise and environmental. we're creating a vicious cycle for another country as well. So another continent.
And the health
Yeah.
effects. Yay.
Yay.
Well, we've hit our 20 minutes, so thank you guys so much. I will see you all again next week. And if anyone has recommendations for topics or things you want to see me get pissed off about, please send a message to either Joy, Joel, or myself. And thank you guys, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye.